Okay, this is my video pertaining to how to install MX Linux 21-2 on Hewlett Packard laptop, more specifically, succinctly 15DW0083WM. It's just a standard quad-core laptop that I just purchased recently. So let's cut to it. Cut to the chase. First you want to browse to mxlinux.org. And then click on the download link as you can see on screen. And there are 3 different distributions. I'm not going to discuss them heavily, but there is a MX21.2x64, which is what I'm going to install and demonstrate. It's just a standard 64-bit kernel image. Now MX Linux is a Debian derivation distribution. There also is an MX21.2 386. It's for 32-bit hardware. And then third, there is an MX21.2 x64, which x64 stands for 64-bit hardware. Advanced hardware support, I'm not going to go over any of that. So there's 3 distributions that you can choose from. And I'm going to choose the first one. That should be sufficient. It has XFCE window manager, there's a KDE, there's a Fluxbox. I do not like Fluxbox. I have tried out Fluxbox. I did not like it. Okay, so that's the first step, is to download one of these distributions. Then you're going to want to create a flash drive, and I have 2 of them right here. And that should be it for the web-based portion of this video. And so now I'm going to transition to my camera, and I'm going to actually shut down my web browser because it uses resources, and I'm using an older computer. And the reason why I am showing you how to install MX Linux 21.2 on a Hewlett Packard laptop is because I'm retiring my older computer. It's an old Dell desktop that it's not sufficient anymore. Okay, so I have a flash drive. I think you should be able to see it. It's this blue one. Anyways. Okay, so this is the source. I have 2 flash drives. So not only am I going to show you how to install Linux, I'm going to boot off of a Linux Live Universal Serial Bus flash drive, and here's my other one. It's black. Okay. So the black one will be source. The blue one will be the destination. Okay, so just give me a few seconds to actually connect these, and then we will start. Or I will start. I'm doing all the work. You're not doing anything. You're just, sitting back doing nothing. Why am I giving you credit already? I get trolled enough on YouTube as it is. Okay, alright. The reason why it took a little while is the flash drives are kind of wide, and there was barely enough room for me to install both. Both the Universal Serial Bus ports on this laptop are on the right hand side. Okay, now I'm just going to power on the computer, and I think I'm going to have to hit F9. And then what I want to do is I want to choose the correct flash drive. Okay, so alright, so you should see the screen. Now let me give you some tips first. Number 1, you download the distribution to your computer. Number 2, you're going to have to create a flash. Well, you could create a digital video disc version of the live image or a Universal Serial Bus. It's up to you. This computer does not have an optical drive, so obviously that is not a possibility. Then you want to use a program to create a live USB. Now, MX Linux has a tool, so I'm actually converting from one version of MX Linux on older hardware to newer hardware that's going to have MX Linux installed, obviously. So, and I did use the MX Linux live USB program. So look for that. If you're using Linux, look for a live USB creator and use that. You can use Rufus, on Windows. You can use a tool. Okay, then once you have your media made, then now this is another tip. On this computer, I had to set in the BIOS, the basic input-output system. BIOS is an acronym that stands for Basic Input-Output System. I had to choose legacy. What that means is that it's not going to use UEFI. UEFI is newer. That's an acronym. Let's move along. So I had to enable legacy mode. Legacy mode, hence the word legacy, meaning old, older, archaic, whatever. It's designed for older operating systems. I may have to enable UEFI, but I might be able to just use legacy, because I was going to show you how to use a Android operating system. It's called Anbox, but there's a newer name for it. I may or may not record a video in the future. Anyways, my point is that it's an actual Linux operating system that is a Android emulator, and it looks just like very similar to an Android. I decided not to because I'm going to kill multiple birds with one stone. So okay, so now on the Hewlett Packard laptop, you want to click on F9 to get to this menu, and then you can choose where you're going to boot from. So I'm going to choose, I don't want to choose a hard drive. And I'm gonna, you know what? I think I'm gonna choose the top. I may have to change this. So I'm gonna choose the top one, USB hard drive. Okay, and then let's see what happens. Okay, great. This is exactly what I wanted. So you don't have to, well, I don't know. We're gonna find out. But I did not have to choose legacy. But I was still able to select UEFI. So quickly, UEFI is newer. Legacy is older. Older operating systems, according to what I quickly looked about legacy. Legacy mode is for like Windows 7 or earlier. Now, when it comes to Linux, I cannot tell you because there's so many different Linux derivation. Well, there's so many Linux distributions that I just can't really tell you a time frame. Really, I don't know, 15 years ago, whatever. You may have to perform some if this is for MX Linux, so, but this is kind of a general how to install Linux on a Hewlett Packard computer. Okay, so this is the operating system that I'm going to choose. Now, there are some advanced options, and then you would just scroll down and choose that, and then let's see what happens. Persistent, failsafe. I don't think I'm going to choose any of this. I'm going to click escape, and it should take me back to the back menu. And I'm just going to choose the first one. It should be a live image. And then I should be able to install it. And you can see my shadow. Okay, so it's running. I could turn off the light so you don't see the shadow. I think I don't really need the light, so I think I'm going to do that. While it's booting, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I think it's still booting, and then we're going to see a desktop, and there should be an installer. Okay, so now this is a live, and I'm not going to connect to any network if I don't have to in this video. Now this is the proverbial MX Linux menu, and it has passwords, but that's just for the demonstration. This is a demonstration version. But there should be an installer. There it is, right up there on the desktop. So right here. Okay. So I should just be able to click on that. Okay. Oh, it's already running in the background. Okay. Oh, let me click OK here. It must be back here. Oh, here it is right here. So this is the installer, and we're going to just go ahead, and the keyboard layout is fine. You can change it. I'm not going to. This is a tip. Don't fuck that up. Or, oops. Oh, we censor YouTube. They do not like it. I've noticed my revolution, well, I wish as an anarchist, yeah, a revolution wouldn't be a bad idea right now with all this capitalist terrorism. I mean, oops. You know, the double-digit inflation, the the rents have doubled in the last 5 years, and rents continue to skyrocket. Okay. Do not mess up your keyboard on operating systems, because sometimes they're a pain in the derriere to fix. And don't mess around with them. Don't mess around with the language, and don't mess around with the keyboard layout. When you install an operating system, make sure that you choose the correct one that you can interpret. If you choose some other keyboard layout or some other language that you don't even speak, and then you boot and you're like, well, I do not speak Greek. What do I do now? Well, you know, buyer beware. Okay. Okay, so click next. I never ever mess around with language ever. Oops, let me go back because I accidentally clicked again. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, let me go back and make sure I didn't. This is a little bit slow, and that's what's going to happen, is because this is actually a live flash drive. It actually has the operating system. I'm actually using MX Linux 21 on a flash drive. Okay. So I'm going to choose this top one, regular install using, and then I think I'm going to close this welcome menu. That's going to use up resources. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to close it and then go back to the installer. Man, this is really slow. Okay. And then I'm just going to use regular install using the entire disk. I'm not going to encrypt it. You can encrypt it, but let me give you a warning. If you do not remember your encryption password, you are F up. You are SOL. You are in grave danger if you have important data and you do not know your encryption password. Now, this is important. I'm not going to choose SDA because that's the hard drive, and I'm not going to overwrite that. Now, hopefully, it won't let me choose. Something's amiss. I'm going to have to click back or customize the layout. It's not allowing me to choose the. Let me put down my microphone. Well, I'm at a crossroads. This computer has Microsoft Windows 10 with a license, and I am not going to use Microsoft Windows 10. However, I don't know if I want to erase the partition because you just never know. Here's a story. A few years ago, I was staying at a hotel, and I ran into a quagmire. What happened is that I couldn't connect to the hotel Wi-Fi, and however I had a second hard drive. I had multiple hard drives on this computer, and I booted up into an old version of Microsoft Windows Vista Service Pack 2, and I had to install and I couldn't get out on the internet with the built-in web browser, and I even tried to install Firefox and all this other, but I found a third-party, not very well-known web browser, and I was able to download it, and I installed it. The problem was is that the signal was not strong enough, and then I bought a IMAX Universal Serial Bus wireless device with great signal. Oh, much better. However, get this. On Linux, a lot of times Linux is plug and play. You install a piece of hardware and it'll just detect it and load a driver. No, it would not. But then you're using Windows Vista. However, it did come with a compact disc, and I loaded it on there, so I was able to get on the internet, but then I couldn't get Linux to work. So it was a huge quagmire. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll be back and see if I can, and I'm not able to choose my other flash drive as a source. I'll be back. I'm back. Alright, the reason why I told you that story is sometimes, believe it or not, you have to have an emergency operating system. I do not like microcrap, microslop wind blows, but I just happen to have a secondary hard drive that had an old version of Vista, and it saved me. You know why? Because I was able to connect out onto the internet. I installed the drivers with a compact disc, and then I was able to work too. That was extremely important. It was bizarre. I will try to look up the web browser maybe. Wow, maybe. Anyways, then I did some research and I was able to find the drivers for Linux. I had to manually install the drivers. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? So sometimes you have to have an emergency operating system. Okay, I figured it out. I had to format it, and the Universal Serial Bus flash drives are so crammed close together because they both of them have an exterior and they're really wide. But now the hard drive is detected, so now I'm going to hit the drop down, and then I'm going to choose, this is very important, you want to choose the correct source, otherwise you're going to overwrite your data. So this is the blue. It's actually a Western Digital. How much did I pay for it? It was only like $6. It's a 32 gigabyte flash drive. I think it's USB 3.0 also. That is a Cruiser Glide. So, okay, you want to make sure that the destination and source are correct, and you don't make a mistake here. Okay, then I know I may sound like a hypocrite, but you just never know when you have to have an emergency operating system. So Linux is not perfect, and then when it comes to connecting to hotels, it's a little bit weird. Or drivers, like in that example. Okay, now I'm going to click next, and I'm going to use the entire drive, but it's a flash drive. So I'm installing from one flash drive to another in this demonstration. Then I'm going to choose yes, and then it's going to start. Now we can change this. None of this is important, but I'm not going to change it right now because I don't want you to see what I would change it to. The computer name, well, you know what? The computer name, I don't care if you know that, because actually it's the model number. So this may take a while, so I'll just go ahead. This is another tip that may or may not be useful. If you have multiple computers, especially on a little network, you may want to name them the model of the computer in case you forget which computer is which. This is what I've done. Whoops. My arm was in the way. 15 dash. What else we have here? DW. I do this all the time. 0083 WM. It's the model. That'll be the computer name. The domain name is, I don't need to change that. Samba server, yeah, we'll leave it there. But nah, I might change it later, but I'm not going to tell you what the workgroup is because of social engineering. Yeah, I think this should work. I mean, I was able to get it to detect the second flash drive. I don't know why it would only detect the solid state, the internal solid state drive. I'm not sure why. It could be because the flash drives are just so tight next to each other. Okay, and now the workgroup. But yeah, I mean, you could. Oh, here's another tip. Don't ever, if you have a website, you may not want to enter in the same domain, like anetcomputers.com. I did that one time. I set up a Linux distribution on a computer, and I was like, oh, I'll just enter in my domain, anetcomputers.com. No. And then I should have known this. This was like decades ago when I first started learning Linux. Well, every time I tried to browse to my website, it wouldn't work because get it, the domain name service was trying to open it on my local computer, not the actual internet. And so I would open up a web browser and I'd try to browse to anetcomputers.com and it wouldn't work. And I was like, it was in the what is it? The host file or whatever file. Okay, let's click next. And let's see what happens. Do I have to pause the video again? I hope not, but hey, it's much easier for me to pause a video than have to stop and concatenate, although concatenate isn't that difficult. Well, it's not doing much, and because of time constraints, I'm going to pause this video again. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, the flash drives are just so snugly fit that they were being dismounted. So I should have fixed that. Okay, and then remember, oh, wait a minute. I just want to make sure I don't screw anything up. Okay, that's Cruise or Glide, which is a Western Digital. Okay, so I'm going to say yes. Okay, here we go. That's all it was. It was just failed to format partition. Okay. But then now it says formatting/root. Install Grub for Linux and Windows. Location to install on master boot record. Partition to use. And then I'm just going to go ahead and choose the defaults for this video. A lot of times I use MBR. Now MBR stands for master boot record. However, if you screw up if the master boot record gets screwed up, it can cause problems. Also, when you start changing these settings, you want to make sure you choose ones that are correct. So we're dealing with SDB 1, which is the second Universal Serial Bus flash drive that I showed you was the Glyzer or whatever, but it's a Western Digital. So I'm going to click next, and then we're going to try this again. Okay, it's asking for English. Remember, if you choose the wrong language, even by accident, and you don't understand the language, guess what? You're going to either have to quickly learn you're going to have to quickly learn that language and figure out how to, you know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm going to change this to, it doesn't really matter, but I don't want to have to change this after the fact. And we'll just choose this. So it's mountain. I could have chosen any city in the mountain time zone. Format, time format. Let's click next. Service settings, well, we can see what that is. I probably won't change anything. Now you could, what this is that services that are enabled at boot up. Now remember, when you start changing, thinking that you know everything, now some of these might be important, but I don't, you could disable Bluetooth, you could disable some of these, but if they're not running at startup, now you can go back in and re-enable them, but I'm just going to choose the default. Later on I'll mess around with that. Okay, now here's where you create a username and password. I'm just going to choose, I always capitalize it just for the heck of it. Actually, if somebody were to try to access my computer and change around in a terminal, they would actually, anyways, should I tell you that? Yeah, that might be I don't know, it's not a big deal. It's case sensitive. So, and then a password, I think I may leave it blank for now, just because it's a video. That would, because you could, social network, well, you can't see anything. So I'm going to enter in, but then, now, I'll just set a password later. Root, well, it's asking me for the root password. I never enable automatic login, but you could, and then you got to confirm. You will want to choose a password because of, but auto login you could, I never do. Save live desktop changes. Yeah, I usually don't choose any of that, but you could. Automatic login just is, it's self-explanatory, but it's a security risk. You know why? Because what happens is that let's not let me go further. Let me click on abort and see what's going on. It's not letting me go further. I'm going to have to pause the video again. That's a security risk, because if you have it set to auto login, somebody else you have to do is restart that computer, and they could go to perform a cold boot. A cold boot is when you power off the computer. You can unplug the power from the computer, or you can hit the power button and you hold it long enough, it's going to shut down. They reboot it, they power it back on, and then it automatically logs you into Linux, and they have your credentials. They have access to your data. That's a security risk. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. This was an easy fix. What I did was I disconnected the flash drive, the source, because the format kept failing. I tried it 3 times off the recording, and it kept failing. So I disconnected. I didn't power off. I just left the live CD running, just like you see now. But I did close the installer, and I inserted again. The operating system must have mounted it, and then I went and started the installer again, and it is running now. So now I'm going to have to make these changes again, but it's not a big deal. So that's an additional tip. Number 1 tip is computers are flaky, and sometimes they're weird. So what I had to physically disconnect the universal serial bus source flash drive, connected it again, the operating system detected it, and then when I opened the MX Linux installer, it formatted it within about a second. Like it was before, you notice that error, it said formatting failed. It showed up really quick, and then it disappeared, but then it kept, the progress indicator was at 12% saying formatting, and then abort. Yeah. Okay, so that's an additional tip. Sometimes you just have to check your physical connections. 15, I'm just going to name this. I should be able to catch up because it's in the background, it is copying files. So D W 0083WM. 0083WM. Okay. And then we'll just leave the rest there. Well, I'll just accept the defaults. I can always change that. Here's a tip. If you're a beginner or new to Linux, or even intermediate, no, back in the day I tried to install Slackware Linux, if you know what that is. I tried to install Debian, not Ubuntu, no, Debian, which is similar to Slackware. And I thought it was the greatest and an expert, and wrong. Sometimes what you do is you just accept the defaults when it comes to installing software and operating systems. When in doubt, that is my tip. Just accept the defaults. And especially when it comes to anything like the formatting. Yeah, I could have chosen. Even now, I never ever customize my mount points. You can choose certain folders to have a certain size, I think even maybe different file system types. I never ever mess around with any of that. I just choose the defaults, and for decades now, even using Linux, I haven't had that many, nearly as many problems. Back in the day, I thought it was hot. I thought it was, well, you know what I mean. I thought it was, an expert and a genius, and I just knew everything, and then I started, performing custom installs with custom file. Now, big mistake. Now I just choose the defaults. Even with settings like this, the only change I made was the time zone. And then we have to go through this again. Okay, but it's already at 21%, so that's good. Let me capitalize it. Okay, I will set a password because, you know what, I rethought that and I was like, nah, fuck it. Oh, oops, excuse me. We censored YouTube. They do not like free speech, and I could be wrong, but my revenue per mille recently has dipped now, and it could be because I've been cussing in some of my videos, and which to me makes total logical sense. We're at 27%, and we're going to set a root password, and my tip is not to set auto login, but it's up to you because I already explained it. I think that's a big security risk. Anybody can restart your computer, and if auto login is selected, then they can they can look at your cheating. I mean, your accounting records. I mean, how many times you visited that brothel. I mean, how many times did you browse to ashleymadison.com? Okay. Now, save live desktop changes. Desktop modifications made in the live environment will be carried over to the installed. Yeah, let's do that. Well, you know what? No. I'm just going to leave that alone. It's up to you about these two. I mean, auto login is convenient, but I'm telling you, if you don't want anybody to access your computer, then you would not allow it. Now, this I cannot click next, but I think we're okay because the progress indicator, the installation in progress, is at 73%. I received that formatting error that, it happens. At first I thought maybe the flash drive was going bad, but the Western Digital, this one I think is better. I bought some ONN, and I made a video about the ONN, and they're really not the greatest. They're okay, but I don't know, computers are flaky. Okay, it says copying new system, and then hopefully eventually the next button will no longer be grayed out when it's complete, and then we'll be able to complete the install, and then I will actually boot into the new operating system. This video isn't too bad, 34 minutes. Yeah, This was freestyled. I have not installed MX Linux 21.2 yet. I have not. I sometimes when I record these videos, I go ahead and I test it out, but you know what? The problem with that is I waste time, because then I have to perform a test install and then the install for my videos. Whereas I don't mind errors. I don't mind problems. You know why? Because that's how life really is. And that includes Americans. I mean, that includes the capitalists. I mean, that includes inflation. I mean, that includes rents doubling in 5 years. I mean, no, that includes information technology. The installs are not perfect. Linux is not perfect. It can be flaky. You can get some weird just occurrences, but you just learn. Updating the init. The init is the initialization. I think RAM does stand for random access memory, and FS may stand for file system. Initializations, they are processes that the operating system uses. There's different. There's init is a little bit older school, and then there's the newer. Anyways, that system D. Anyways, it's close to the end. We're at 97%. I have no idea what was wrong with the flash drive. That's really strange. It went to format it, and then it quickly errored out, and then I had to disconnect and reconnect it, and then it formatted it within like a second. Okay, cleaning up. Okay, excellent. Very important now. So this is it. Well, not you, but I successfully installed MX Linux. There were some pitfalls that may have added, I don't know, maybe a few minutes to this video. Automatically reboot the system when the installer is closed. I'm going to go ahead and select that. You could uncheck it, and you could continue to use the live. This is live. What I mean by that is that this is the MX Linux 21.2 operating system running. I know that some of the YouTube technology shills hate in context using that verbiage. I don't care. I believe in free speech. They may not. They may be communist, fascist, I don't know, control freaks, I don't know what their problem is. Or maybe they're racist towards me. I look different than certain... Oops, we better not go there. I may get my YouTube channel terminated. Okay. We censor tube. They don't like certain topics. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click finish. Now, here's an additional tip. What I did notice and I'll just click finish and then I will talk while it completes its tasks. I noticed that, remember at the beginning of this video I discussed legacy, and then I need to pay attention. I need to hit the F9 because I need to choose the right menu option so I don't prolong this video. Okay, if you notice in the BIOS, the boot option menu, it lists USB hard drive twice. Okay? So what I'm going to do now, you know what? I messed up. So I'm going to power it off. This is the boot menu. You're not going to break anything by powering off. The BIOS, well, the BIOS, you should save your changes when you're in the BIOS, or when you exit. But I'm just going to power off because I screwed up. Okay. I'm going to disconnect the source flash drive, and let me show you what I did. Now I took it apart. You may be able to see this. You're going to see my shadow in the screen. Can you see that? You see how small that is? Okay, what I did, now this cover was over the USB drive. You see how wide that is? It fits over it. And it was so wide that the two flash drives just weren't, I don't think they were inserted tightly. But it came right off. I didn't break it or anything. No, I'll fix that later. So the source Universal Serial Bus flash drive is now removed. And then I'm going to boot up, but since I still have a hard drive, to save time, I'm going to click F9 to go into the boot menu on this Hewlett Packard laptop that you should be able to see now. Okay, and then let me move the camera a little bit because it did get moved. I think I bumped it a little bit. Okay, now you should only see USB hard drive once. That is the Western Digital flash drive, and it even tells you. Now, in nomenclature, in information technology computer speak, USB is an acronym for Universal Serial Bus. Hard drive, you can actually use Universal Serial Bus flash drives as hard drives. The operating system, they don't know. They don't know the difference between a solid-state drive, a SATA drive, an old-school IDE drive, a SCSI drive. What is it? SCSI is acronym for Small Computer System Interface or whatever. Those are old school. I don't even know if they're manufactured anymore. They may or may not for servers. I do not know. But it shows up as a hard drive. Okay, so I'm going to click Enter, and then it should boot off. Invalid signature detected. Check secure boot policy and setup. Well, Windows Boot Manager. Oh, maybe this one. Let's try this one. Nope, same error. Invalid signature detected. Check secure boot policy and setup. Okay, well, I will be back. It will not let me boot off that flash drive. I may just have to disconnect it and reconnect it. Who knows? Or you know what? I could power it off right now. Well, you're not going to be able to see most of this, so I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Let me pause that again. Okay, it's booting now. Did you see that? Okay, okay, it's booting now. Okay. So I'm just going to let it boot. You can hit escape and it'll show you the boot processed. Some Linux distributions, if you hit the escape key, it will actually show you the background, the actual processes that get started. Okay, and then I will tell you what I did to fix that last problem. It was Secure Boot. Secure Boot was enabled in the BIOS by default. I never set it. I never changed it. The only setting I changed in the BIOS was Legacy, but then I switched it off. Oh, did I discuss that? Legacy. I may or may not have. Okay, so the operating there now I am actually using a Western Digital 32 gigabyte Universal Serial Bus flash drive as a hard drive, and then. Let me see. I may be able to show you. I'm gonna transition. You're gonna see a blank screen for a moment, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see. I don't want you to. There could be. Make sure that it does not show up. File system. It's all good. Okay. All right. Okay, so the last error says something about secure boot. I went into the BIOS. There is a secure boot setting. It runs some cryptographic checks. It may be for Windows. I'm not sure. Well, the default operating system that was shipped with the laptop was Microsoft Windows 10, and it errored out, and I did not change the BIOS setting. I never turned on Secure Boot. It was enabled by default. I disabled it. Then that error disappeared, and then on screen I showed you that I was given the MX Linux grub boot menu. And within a second, it was quick. The only other change to the BIOS I ever made was Legacy. At the beginning of the video, I told you that I enabled Legacy. However, I noticed that the live flash drive was slow. Remember at the beginning, it was really slow. Like if I moved the mouse, it would be delayed like this. Look. See how slow that is? Whereas now, look. Look. You know, I'm able to move the mouse pretty quickly. Now the operating system is on a flash drive, so I'm going to test it for a while. And then now you can disable this. You can, or that this is just a little MX welcome window that always pops up. That's it. That's my video on how to install MX on screen MX21.2 Wildflower X64 on a Hewlett Packard $15DW0083WM. It's a quad core. It's not very fast. It's not the fastest quad core ever, but it's efficient. Now I have my preferred operating system on this Hewlett Packard laptop that I purchased yesterday. And then now I just test. I may actually have to install it on the solid state hard drive. I do not want to because I'll just be blunt, I hate Windows. I will never use it if I do not have to. However, I told you a story earlier in this video where I had to have an emergency operating system, and I just happened to have an old Microsoft Windows Vista on a second drive on my desktop computer, and it actually saved me. The irony. No, I'm not going to say it. No, I will not say that. I will not say that Microsoft saved me. I'm going to say that I saved myself. So here's another additional bonus tip. Sometimes you may not want to rely on just one operating system. Sometimes you may want to have a backup computer, whether it's a desktop, a mini PC. My next computer I plan to buy is a mini PC, and I'll record a video. They're very small, but they're it depends on the brand and the model, but they can be very reliable. Nowadays they're pretty powerful, and they're very small and compact. Is that you may want to have a backup desktop computer. I don't care how old it is. I don't care if it's 10 years old. As long as you can get on the internet, or even a laptop. So you may not want to, throw away. Don't. I don't know. I would never ever. I never give out recommendations. I never give out advice. I don't guarantee anything. But when people throw away computers, my jaw drops, and I'm wondering why. Even you can actually use Linux on we're talking 486 on x86. There's some really stripped down versions, even Slackware. You can use Slackware on very old computers. Now I get to test. Adios.